stand and we'll have an invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gifts and for the challenges of being together in community. We ask for your blessings, for your wisdom, for your blessings upon all those who serve in this city, those in staff, those volunteers, those citizens and their concerns. God, give us ears to hear, and give us wise words. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll do citizens' comments along with agenda items that they pertain to. For those who want to speak, we'll move on to approval of the minutes for our last session, minutes for August 14th.
I have a suggestion or two on the minutes for, the 14th, down where in the paragraph for adjourn, it says on a motion by Councilman Kane, seconded by Madam Morrison, Mayor Dass adjourned the meeting at 6:09 p.m. I think that should be adjourned. And likewise, in the next sentence, it says adjourned at 6:09. I think that
I don't see where you're looking.
On the 14th minutes?
Yeah,
The one that
14th
was,
minutes.
that was the one I was gone. Y'all did it with the city council. It was a
Yeah,
joint
when we're
meeting.
meeting with the city council.
Yeah,
I didn't know about that one.
I neither.
Is it just a typo?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just-
well, it's the wrong word. You can adjoin properties, but you.
Oh,
can't
okay,
adjourn-
so you want to change it from adjoin to adjourn.
Please, I think that's what it was meant.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It just didn't make sense for it to be adjoined.
I think you should do the minutes separately, though.
Even though it was a joint meeting, your minutes shouldn't reflect the actions of the council, so I would strike that motion to adjourn that was made by the council and just leave it as a motion to adjourn by you all.
Okay, well, and I agree with that. The minutes for the council are their minutes, but ours, we could probably correct that.
So can we say so amended?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we accept this as I suggested to amend it.
I'll second that.
All right, so a motion's been made to accept the minutes amended. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, passes. On to agenda item number 2. To discuss and take possible action regarding changing out a yield sign for a stop sign at Pecan and West 9th Street. Any comments on this item?
Yeah, I'm the one that suggested it. That's a dangerous intersection. In 2020, my wife got hit by a young girl ran that yield sign. And it's an intersection where there's usually a lot of cars parked on one corner. And I've seen ever since, I've seen people run it from both sides. And you just have to be real careful there because it ought to be a stop sign, I think.
I guess by looking at the pictures we've got, I think those trees need to be trimmed too.
Now, this is,
I don't think people respect yield signs as much as they do stop signs.
Right.
8th and Pecan is also a little suspect because of the way the carpool line stacks up on Freeport Elementary.
Yeah.
Especially in the morning, you got a lot of people going down Pecan and then people hitting 8th.
I think that needs to probably be more addressed with the school, though, to get their traffic off of the street. Because they're kind of blocking the complete road there. You can't even get to your house if you try to get to one there.
They have a pickup line in the back, a pickup line in the front. One pickup line goes down Velasco, the other pickup line goes down Pecan.
Yeah.
And when you've got people going down, lining up down Pecan, and then you've got 8th and 9th Street that people are just shooting,
Yeah.
and they're used to never stopping, it's a problem.
If you would like, we can add the next one on the next agenda.
Okay.
And that's 8th and Pecan?
8th and Pecan. Also, the viewing triangle on that is obstructed because of trees, and that's against code. All right, do we have any more discussion on this item? I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve changing it.
I'll second it.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass unanimous. Item number 3. All right, this will be interesting. Discuss and take possible action regarding the allowance of proposed changes to the city ordinance 155.501 for standards for residential infill development to allow single-family residences and carports to be built on single 25-foot lots. I know we have some citizens that would like to make comments on this, so we will have that at this time.
I wanted to pass along, Mr. McKay asked me to speak on his behalf just for a moment. He is out of town on a pre-planned family vacation and was not able to be here, but he would appreciate your support in allowing him to build on 25-foot lots. And again, we'll allow for citizen comment for the rest.
We have Lamar Jordan.
Okay, that's me.
That's you.
My name's Lamar Jordan. I didn't really expect to come up here speaking tonight.
And where's your address?
It's, well, I've got P.O. Box 1650. I live in Lake Jackson. My office is in Lake Jackson.
That's okay, no one's perfect.
Okay. I was born in Freeport. I grew up here. I graduated from Bradford High School. So
He still owns a lot of land here.
I've been here. This is my hometown.
Gotcha.
Still invest in properties here. I'm very glad to see y'all taking up this idea of 25-foot lots. Because most of the north side of town is all 25-foot lots. I know it was a plat y'all approved, 1891. There was no municipal government at that time. So everything was cut up into 25-foot lots. That's just what we have. It's been 130 years. They started selling these lots out, 25-foot at a time, and they've been resold over the years. They've been handed down. And, first thing I'd like to say is, I believe property owners ought to be able to use their property. I think that's private property rights. They should have some. So I'm glad that y'all are looking at that. I know this was talked about once before. It surprised me when I just asked her if a person came in to get a permit for a 25-foot lot. She said you couldn't get one. You can't use the lot at all. So something there needs to change. I know a number of years ago, and I don't know how much time I have, but I know a number of years ago, there was a lawyer, his name was Jones, and I think he had a client, wasn't me, that was asking for a permit and been refused to build on a 25-foot lot. And the lawyer was threatening a lawsuit with the city because the man couldn't use his lot. I don't really think anything ever happened. I don't think he filed a lawsuit. I don't think anything became of it because there really wasn't a market for houses on 25-foot lots. Nobody really wanted that, and I think they figured that out. Nobody wanted to do it. That was way back in the 80s. But now it's different. Now we do have a market for it, and we've got a gentleman that she spoke for that is building houses. I don't know if y'all have seen them over here on Avenue C.
I've watched them go up.
Got some
and all
pictures.
through.
Great. I've been through them as well. I think it's great that he is, trying to build affordable housing for people that might be in mobile homes or apartments. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's nice if people can own their own house. And that he's trying to make it affordable and make these available. And I would really like to see y'all working on this. I have 25-foot lots, and my family has some 25-foot lots. And we'd like, in some cases, there's not another lot to acquire beside it. It's between two houses. I'd like to be able to use it. And this this looks like an opportunity here. As far as, I don't know what kind of proposed changes are here for item number 3. It just says allowance of proposed changes. Looking at his houses, didn't look like setback lines had changed any.
Oh, so they were still,
Yeah.
You know-
still followed.
They were followed.
I think they're the same. I know Realty World came up here, and they tried to get a variance for a 0 lot line. That's not gonna, that might work fine in a new development, that's not gonna work in an existing development. But he did, you know, I don't think he's expecting changes to setbacks. I think,
Sir, we got 1 minute.
okay, one more minute? Okay. It would be, I think it would be good to have a little bit smaller house than current regulations call for. And, you know, I'm thinking like, you know, maybe like some of the apartments in town, 850, 875.
600 to 800 square foot,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, I think it would be good to have them smaller. And that would make it more affordable. Maybe you could get it on 1 story,
Right.
because it's a lot more
And that's,
expensive once
that's a
you
lot
start.
of the questions with the influx, infill like that. Neighbors on both sides don't really want a 2-story looking over their privacy
Well,
fence.
that's right, you would blend into existing neighborhoods.
Right.
Yeah.
The neighborhoods here, you know, they're not real uniform anyway. A lot of the houses were built in 50s, 60s, and 70s when we had a lot of growth during those years.
Yep.
And so, yeah, a wide variety of sizes, age, all those sorts of things. So we already have mixed neighborhoods. This would just be another option in there.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Time up, and your
Yeah.
eyebrows are up, so I think.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any other citizens who want to make a comment? Councilman?
While Councilman's walking up, I apologize. I normally read out the requirements or the suggested requirements. So just real quickly, what's being requested is being allowed to build on a single 25-foot lot, possibly be allowed to use it with a specific use permit so that each lot or circumstance could be addressed individually, possibly allow for lots with an alleyway only. Minimum setbacks, they were requesting 15-foot from the front, 5-foot side, 5-foot rear. Minimum lot area would be 2,500 square feet, and minimum lot width, 25 foot. And minimum dwelling size was proposed for 1,000, but that's under discussion. And then allow for a 2-car carport instead of a garage to be required on 25-foot lots only. And that way you would only need 1 existing lot to build on. That's the proposed ideas.
Yeah, currently you need 2
Or
adjacent.
2 or more.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is George Matamoros. I reside at 1722 North Avenue O. I'm also the Ward C City Councilman. I come before you tonight to speak about this issue. It's an issue that deeply affects the residents of my ward, the people who helped elect me. Unfortunately, quite a few couldn't be here tonight to speak against this issue. It's been brought up once before through the Board of Adjustments. It was a very hotly contested issue.
Yes, it was.
And this issue, while majority of the residents are not against development, they are against this type of development. If you've driven around Freeport, you notice in Ward C, there are a lot of 25-foot lots in between existing homes. A lot of those owners have owned their houses for 40, 50, 60 years. And if we were to come in with a 2-story house in between them, and if you even go and look at some of those properties, they were built right on the property line. If you go in between those houses and you look at them, and you try and build a 2-story, it's going to change the complexion of the entire neighborhood. If you add a carport to it, it's really going to change that complexion. There's not that many homes in the avenues, as I like to say, or Velasco, that don't have those type of carports in their front. Majority of them are driveways that lead to a garage. And so I'm coming before y'all with the request that you do not allow homes to be built on these 25-foot lots unless, here's the compromise, they have an existing alleyway that's already developed, that a carport can be put in the back, and it doesn't change that, the way the neighborhood looks.
Just to clarify, the carport you'd want to be in the back, not in the front.
Not in the front,
I see.
The way those are built.
The way these are built right
the
now.
way those are built. And I will state that I was on the Board of Adjustments when Mr. McKay came to have those, and I did approve it because it had an alleyway in the back, the carport was in the back. And speaking with a lot of the residents, they would be okay with that. There's not a lot of alleyways developed on that side of town. So that's going to be an issue that we'll have to work through. But it will at least allow those residents who have existing 25-foot lots between their homes now, not have to worry about somebody building a house right then and there in between them. Another possible change would be making sure that if they do build, that we of course keep those setbacks, but that the minimum be reduced to make it a little bit smaller type, maybe like a tiny home. It's not something that I like, but this is just something that residents have brought before me. My biggest thing is, if you're gonna allow them to build on a 25-foot lot, at least allow them, it has to have a developed alleyway already and the carport in the back of that house. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Do you have any more discussion? Are we ready to talk about this?
Been 25 years we've been talking about this.
We've been talking about it, and I'm surprised we don't have any torches and pitchforks out here tonight. This is really a relief. People need to be able to use their property. I would ask if there's not already a developed alley, what if the developer, it was at their expense to develop the alley behind these properties?
Most of these alleys that are not developed were originally shale and grass has just grown up on them. So they are alleys that are plotted 30-foot alleys.
They're plotted.
And they've got shale underneath, the grass has just grown through, so.
If it was at the developer's expense to do the alley, like,
That would be a huge expense for a developer to do an alley.
then it's up to them. Do they want to make that investment? I mean, it's an expense, but
I
you
would
can't
think-
just,
I would think the city would probably need to make that investment, maybe throw down some reclaimed, or just the people would just drive over the shell that's existing there already with the grass growing up through it. Eventually, the grass is gonna die over if they drive over it enough, and it's got shell underneath. Most all those alleys were put in with shell back then.
That's true.
That's what I was thinking. But every alley I've ever seen looked like an alley because it got regular traffic on it.
Right, our alley on Broad Street was originally shell, just a lot of us neighbors chipped in and had it asphalted,
Yeah.
blacktop.
yeah.
So I would say as long as it's got an alley easement, a 30-foot alley easement, if it's got a plotted alley, I would say that would be
But
sufficient.
they would need to improve the alley to make it drivable.
Drive over shell? What's wrong with shell?
Nothing, but a lot of these just look like a field. They're platted as an alley, but you would not ever know there was an alley there.
You don't know where the curb is?
You don't know where the curb is, you don't know where it is, unless you're looking at a map that tells you that's an alley, you don't know that's an alley.
Yeah.
I think if you're gonna develop it, and it has to have an alley behind it, then it needs to be at the developer's expense to put down some gravel at least.
I
Put down some
visited-
shell.
I visited one of these houses, the 919, 919 one, and it's what you're saying. I mean, there's just a shell covered alley back there, and it was plenty easy to drive over. And as a matter of fact, when I first drove up in front of it, because that's where Google dropped me off, and I'm looking at all this water in this bar ditch, wondering, how am I gonna even get there? Where do I park? And then I saw the alley and it's like, oh, yeah, this makes sense.
It would be real detrimental to have these carports in front, I think. That wouldn't be, that
No,
would,
Can't
that
have
would not be
carports in
enough.
front.
so it's
No.
they gotta be in the back.
Are you on Google Earth on the screen?
Yes, I
Can you pull up the 400 block of Avenue G? South Avenue G? You get up in the alleyway,
Which way?
be to the left, right behind the church.
Avenue G,
This is by the Safety Council. This is just one I can show you because I drive here and here all the time. If you see, there is an alleyway right there. The curb is cut, and that is shell, but it's totally grown over with grass. Nobody uses it, but it is a shell alleyway. And you can drive through it, not sink through it.
All right.
Center Point drives through with their trucks, and it doesn't sink. So, I mean, once it gets used and people start driving over it, the grass is gonna die.
Or at least be,
So much of that area is platted for alleys, and we do have easements that run through there for utilities, but that would not be considered a developed alley.
Yeah.
Right. We could come in and put some reclaimed or something like that on there as well, though, couldn't we, as a base? Once we're cutting these streets down?
Well, there are a huge number of alleys like that particular
Right.
alley
A lot of
all
them.
over the city.
Correct.
So the expense to do that for all those alleys would be pretty cost prohibitive, and then you would also have to maintain them. Currently, there's not a demand for those types of alleys. If in fact a developer wanted to come in to do this, I would, I don't think it would be on the city's expense to develop that alley.
I don't believe it should be the city's expense.
yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
If there's already an alley there, then it needs to be developed.
But what are you calling developed? I mean, there's a 30-foot easement right there, and it's got shell underneath, so what are you calling an alley, and what's developed and
It
what's
needs to
not
be,
developed?
Developed alley
needs to
would
be
be-
designated as
Would be
such.
graded down with compact fill, and you could put gravel and compacted gravel on top of it. It wouldn't have to be paved necessarily, but
So then that one would already be an improved alley then, at that
sorry?
point. That would be considered an improved alley then.
at that point, it would be considered an approved alley. But the picture that you just looked at was not an improved alley.
There's a lot of them like that.
And there are. yes.
Most of them are like that right there. That's what I was getting at, is our alley on Broad Street used to look just like this before it was brought in with a maintainer and graded down, and neighbors chipped in and paid for blacktop to be put in. Now it's just got reclaimed material that was put from road base when the roads were cut up.
I
Grass
think
grows through it.
That alley would
currently.
need to be graded, it would need to be, have material put on top of it, gravel, it'd have to be compacted. A grass alleyway that's not been used in 20 years would not be something we would want to just hang. I
I
think,
mean, it's got culverts on both ends. If you come over to the other side of the street and look down, there's culverts, and it's got a cut to come in, there's a cut in the concrete to come in. That, to me, is an improved alley. Whether it's got a surface on it or not, it's got shell. Grass grew through it from non-use. Grass will grow through, concrete. It'll cover concrete in no time. Just look at the sidewalks around town. So that is an improved alley. It's got an improved base underneath it. Go try to dig with a shovel.
I don't think anybody would drive by it and call that an improved alley.
Yeah, and I have to agree with that. What we're looking at here does not look like an alley to me. I mean, if I was trying to shift something around and say, oh, yeah, there's a curb cut, that must be an alley. But I hadn't got a problem asking the developers if they're gonna develop on these lots and put the carport in the back, which I think is a good idea.
No, that is.
That, they go ahead and do something to provide access, something. They don't have to necessarily do the whole alley from one end to another, but at least from one street to the driveway of the house that they're putting in.
In the middle of the block, that could potentially be $30,000.
Well, if I was the developer,
Added
I'd be
it.
real careful which lots I
Yeah,
picked.
then don't develop, buy one that you can
Yeah.
use. Buy a different one.
I mean, that's my choice as the developers, which lots do I think I want to deal with? But,
So you need an alley. If the alley's not improved, it's at the expense of the developer to improve the alley so the carport can go in back.
yeah, and we'll need to define what is an improved alley. Because, right now, we're talking,
I think everybody
Eric's
knows
got
what
one
an improved
definition,
alley
I've
is.
got
We just
another.
don't have the language for it.
yeah,
I mean,
I'm assuming shell would be, improved alley. I would consider that, whether it's asphalt, blacktop.
I wouldn't require
concrete.
asphalt. Asphalt is, that's too, we can go lower than asphalt. Gravel compacted would be fine, but it needs to have something on it. It needs to look like a driving.
Yeah, it looks like it should look drivable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because just having ruts through the grass doesn't look good to me.
If I turned on that alley, I would switch to four-wheel drive just out of habit.
But,
So it
But like I
needs
say, I
to,
think a good developer could take that into consideration and say, okay, this is what
Yep.
I'm gonna do. Now, if we're trying to please everybody that's got a 25-foot lot that they bought as an investment, and now they wanna get a sweetheart deal to build on that lot, even though it's not necessarily real accessible, and they can't afford to build an alley up to it. I don't think that's what's before us. I'm not in favor of trying to satisfy all those 25-foot lot owners.
We
But
got
the ones where it
attention.
makes sense, that we can do with it.
there's a demand for affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, regulations make affordable housing very difficult to build. In many cities, it's illegal to build affordable housing. We don't want to do that. People need to use their property, but we also don't want to make anybody miserable. And you don't want someone who has a piece of property next to them that's basically been a part of their yard for the last 40 years, and suddenly some truck shows up and starts putting stakes in the ground, and then next thing you know, they're building something on it. We need to make sure that these are somehow controlled, that everybody's informed, that they have some say. I don't think it's a perfect solution. It will create problems of its own. It's a trade-off, but I'm thinking specific use permits for
Yeah,
these.
I think that's a
I
good
think
way to
that's a
do
good
it.
idea too, especially if we're getting started with it and kind of see how it goes.
Is-
Specific use.
Not every developer is Mr. McKay. There might be some,
Yeah.
specific use would allow us to vet the developer to make sure the design is not too, they're not building a doghouse and calling it a home,
Yeah.
It gives us some control, and it also will require that the neighbors are notified. We don't want somebody to be surprised, I think that they have the right to be notified of something being built adjacent to them. And specific use would do that. The risk is that it could politicize things that don't need to be politicized. But I think it's a trade-off I'm willing to make. And that's all I have to say about that. Anybody?
No, I'm right. I'm
Yeah,
with that.
I'm good with that.
What about size considerations? The 1,000 or
What is the square footage of the two that we've been looking at that were off of Avenue C?
just a little over 1,000?
Say again?
1,005 square foot or something?
1,005?
I'm
Okay, I
on-
thought those were bigger than
But
that.
that's both stories?
Yes, that's both stories together.
1,000 square
That's-
feet.
Yes.
Like I said, I went over and looked at it.
1,066
Yeah,
square feet.
1,066.
Yeah, and they're really neat-looking houses. The,
Yeah, I like the design.
You know, they've got little design touches inside, like the, where the drywall corners come together, they're all rounded off. I've always been impressed with that. It's a cheap and easy thing to do, but it makes it look good.
Yeah, it's kind of a new look.
Yep. I opened up,
Instead of the squared off corners.
yep, I looked in the electric box, the, breaker panel, and that's all up to code, maybe even better than code. But,
Yeah.
it was just real, the only thing that I saw that worried me was the stairway up into the attic from the second floor, but the attic was all jammed up. So you couldn't look in the attic, and you had to watch out for that stairway and walk around it. You're gonna bump your head. But I'm sure that was just, somebody needed to align that. But the fixtures in there and the appointments, having the extra half bath downstairs and 2 full baths upstairs with the 2 bedrooms, a lot of that made a lot of sense to me.
The 15-foot setback in front, I'm fine with. The
Yep.
5 side and 5 rear. I think they do need to be on lots with an alley. If there's not an improved alley, then it's up to the developer to improve that alley.
Yep.
I would like to make a suggestion, if you're going to allow for a 5-foot building setback, that there be at least the space for 2 cars to park in the driveway. Because if you have no parking or driveway in the front, and you're only allowing for parking in the back off of the alleyway, you just want to have the requirement that at least 2 cars must be able to fit in that driveway.
Yes, that's a
Because
good,
some of them become so short that it's a 1-car driveway.
And I'm thinking that these two houses
that's a
we're looking
carport.
at, the driveway was wide enough for 1 car, but the carport was long enough for 2.
Right.
but that's
And
the
it's like,
idea
well-
of having the minimum setback of 15 feet in the front, that kind of moves it forward so you have room for
Right.
2 cars in the back.
Exactly.
That's the idea.
Like, one of the things they had in their brochure was that there's minimal landscaping to maintain. It's like, well, okay. It's a lot of.
There's a number of homes in Freeport that were built in the 40s that are 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And they're still cute little homes. It can be done, but I think the neighbors have the right to be notified and have a say on what's being built adjacent to them, especially with these orphan 25-foot lots that are kind of sandwiched.
Yeah,
And that's been always been the rub with this issue is what about the orphan 25-foot lots? And when we came up again, we said, well, you only have to have 2 adjacent to each other. And that was supposed to be a compromise, but this just keeps coming up.
yeah.
One additional item I'd like to bring up is it's come to our attention about outdoor storage. There is none on these type of lots. So what are you going to do with your lawnmower? What are you going to do with any outdoor equipment? So there was a question of whether or not you wanted to require an outdoor storage closet or an outdoor, I mean, it's an issue. It could become an
We thought
eyesore.
about that once before, and we had talked about that, and we kind of figured, we were looking at more at like 600 to 1,000 square foot, and actually, we were kind of stuck at 600 square foot, because that basically gives you a 15 by 40 on a single floor, single story. And that was one of the big complaints that a lot of the neighbors had, is they didn't want a 2-story towering up over their property, looking over their fences and everything, which I get that. And they kind of figured that most people that were going to move into this were going to be people that were probably paying somebody to mow their yard. That it was going to be an elderly lady, something like that, that was living in these type of smaller homes. So that was kind of what we had talked about years ago. But you don't want to see lawnmowers and everything just shoved out in the yard or on the side, so I get that as well.
Yeah, that's my concern. Have you got anything that would keep them from parking their lawnmower on the front porch? Because that's gonna look pretty crappy.
No, there's not an ordinance that
There's
would
nothing
prohibit
that
that right now.
prohibits that.
Huh.
Yeah.
But I would like to, like George said, maybe allow for a smaller square footage on
Yeah,
these smaller
right.
lots. That way it's not
fine.
something big and towering over. That way you could actually go with a smaller and make it a lot more affordable.
Yeah.
199,000,
I think
that's
900
not
square
low end.
feet actually does make a difference. 900 square feet, you have more room for outdoor. You could put an outdoor storage locker or a small shed, attached.
Yep.
at 900, you would be, 15 by, 60 foot? Yeah. It would be 60 foot long, 15 foot wide at a single story.
Yeah, and on this floor plan, all it would do would maybe chop off the second bedroom upstairs and turn it into a 1-bedroom. And cut out some of the living dining area that's downstairs. And it'd also make it more resistant to side loading of winds. That was the big thing that I couldn't tell from looking at this, but I'm hoping that they put shear wall in there somewhere.
They did.
Okay.
Yes, it was inspected for
Because on a
windstorm.
long skinny house like this, it's the only thing that'll keep it from just collapsing over.
Another thing that the developer, Scott McKay, had requested was an 850 square foot minimum.
Yeah.
Because he said he had several plans that he could fit on the lot, and some of them are 1-story.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of y'all have looked on Amazon or not. They actually have prefab homes you can buy for your area, windstorm for your area and everything. And they're running anywhere from like 420 square feet on up under 1,000 square foot. And they're pretty neat looking little
Yeah.
cottage homes.
Like those
I mean, I
old
think they would
craftsman
fit.
homes.
Yeah, I think they would fit in this area.
Yeah.
So legal definitions, if you go 0 to 499 square feet, it's called a tiny home. 500 to 999 is a small home, and
Small home.
1,000 up is just a home.
Okay.
So 500 or 599?
500 to 999.
So if we went 600 and up,
It would just
then
be a
we
small
wouldn't end
home.
up with, it'd be a small home.
It's
but it
all
wouldn't be
about the
tiny.
design.
Yeah,
And we
By
need,
specific
and
use.
we're not gonna come up with a rule that is gonna cover every design. There'll be some that we like, there'll be some, there's developers that, you know, we wanna vet. Specific use gives us some control,
some control.
so that we don't make people miserable
And it
further
will
down the
take
line.
into account, as Mr. Matamora said, there are some instances where buildings, neighboring buildings have been built across property lines. We cannot make them move, but with a specific use permit, you could address that issue at that time.
Right. So let's go with Pacific use and 600 square foot.
Now, there's
And
one concern with specific use. To be fair to a developer, you know, it wouldn't be fair if they bought a piece of property and then found out later that we denied their specific use permit, now they can't use their property. Is there a way they can get approval for it? What would be the legal mechanism would be to get a permit, you know that their project would be approved before it is
They can
purchased?
do a contract contingent on, that he be allowed to, in certain instances, that they be allowed to build with a specific use permit. So that would be in the deal that they're purchasing it from. We'd have to do some education with our local real estate agents and let
Okay.
them know on these particular lots, they need to do their due diligence and possibly write into that contract, this is approved sale with approval of a specific use permit.
Right, just put that
Okay.
condition on there.
Right.
Put a 3-month feasibility in the contract, enough time to run it through the system.
Okay. Yeah, we want to be fair.
It's moving in the right direction. It at least gets us somewhere with these 300 orphan lots that we've got sitting
Yeah.
around town.
I agree.
It may not be the right fit for every one of them,
Well,
but
you-
we got to do something with them
You
because,
can't come up with a rule that's
Right.
going to fit every situation, because every block is different, the neighbors need to be informed, and the neighbors may be different, and they might like it, and they might not. We need to treat it on a case-by-case basis.
90% of these orphan lots have all been run through Missouri County tax sale because the owners could not build on them. They got tired of paying taxes and mowing, so they didn't pay the taxes. They went to the county. The city was in charge of mowing them, cleaning up trash. It has been a nightmare for the city. And then they started running them on the tax resale list, and investors started buying them because they saw a possibility of building on them. So, no, it'd definitely be a move in the right direction.
Yeah. All right.
Could I ask, Mr. Matamoros, does that, what we're talking about sound like it would appease some of your,
Constituents?
constituents? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to set everybody's hair on fire, but I don't think we can satisfy everybody. But if we can keep it down to something we can manage, I'd be happy with that.
I,
Your best guess.
I think it could satisfy them.
Okay.
The biggest issue is if we don't have a developed alley and somebody wants to put it, if y'all don't have.
No carports in the front yard.
No
Yeah.
carports in the front.
No carports in the
And if
front
the
yard
alley's not
regardless.
developed, then if they want to build on it, then they are responsible for developing that alley.
Okay. And this board, it's together, but if y'all left and a new board comes in and they're like, yeah, we want to have that, allow them to build, then with that specific use, they may grant it where they have, and so that's a risk that we'll have to take. But the biggest issue is those alleyways. They don't want people parking in the front, and they want them in the back, and just to keep the neighborhood looking about the same way that it is now.
Yeah.
So,
Good. Thank you.
All right.
So we want to mark this up and vote on it?
Yeah.
Close the public hearing first, though.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
All right, we can close the
Actually,
public hearing.
If you'll notice, it's not a public hearing on the
Was it?
agenda.
You had us open it.
We had us open it, and we
Was
had
it open?
citizens' comments.
Was it published as a public
Yeah.
hearing? Oh, I apologize. I will say that we are going to have our city attorney develop an ordinance with whatever suggestions you come up with, so we will bring it back before you one more time with that
Okay.
ordinance, as we're doing tonight with the
So
containers.
just to go down the items for the ordinance, it would be allowed by specific use, allowed on lots with a developed alley or the alley developed at the developer's expense. The minimum setbacks 15-foot front and 5 and 5.
5 in the rear as well.
And minimum dwelling size, are we saying we go to 900 from 1,000?
How about 600?
Yeah, I was thinking we were leaning towards 600.
That's a tiny place, man.
600 is, he was thinking 600 as well. 600 is, to keep from doing a two-story, that gives you a 15 by 60 foot. 15 by 40s.
I would not feel comfortable under 900.
Yeah, because as you talk about it, I'm afraid we're gonna end up with a bunch of shotgun houses. like
Exactly.
Yeah,
we
that's
got.
what I've heard, a few
Some of
people.
these places.
That's one of the main concerns people have expressed.
You'll have, it'll look like a doghouse in the front that just goes all the way back.
Yeah, so I was with that 600 for a while, and the more I think about, okay, how's that really gonna work, and what's gonna probably attract the wrong developers is getting it down too low.
What's going to build value over time?
Yeah, yeah,
And a 600 square foot it's questionable.
yeah.
900 allows you space outside if you needed to store a lawnmower or put a outdoor storage locker, kind of like a shed that's attached.
You're
You could
not
do
gonna
that.
have room for a shed if you are building a 900 square foot single floor residence. You will not have, you're taking up too much of your lot space at that point. You only have so much surface area to work with. You're 25 foot by 110
Well,
foot
then put an upstairs
lot.
bedroom and make it 2-story.
Well, then that also gives you problems, like George was saying, some people don't want 2-story. They would rather have a small cottage sitting next between them.
We have lots of houses, neighborhoods in Freeport where there's a 2-story next to single stories. I don't
But
see.
we also got some 800, we also have some 800 square foot houses that were built in the 40s.
We do.
Lila's house is 750 something square foot before the garage was closed in.
Is there any consensus on square footage minimums?
Like I say, I was okay with 600 a while ago, but I can't do that now. I gotta go, I'd say 900.
Yeah, I
And,
think
you
so.
know, we're kind of treading new water here, and so I'd rather be more conservative to get this started and look at it again in 2 years and say, well, how's this going? But I really don't want a bunch more little
You say
shacks.
850 with a required outdoor storage locker?
Yeah, I like the outdoor locker, because somebody's got to
If you're gonna go under, then I think there needs to be that outdoor storage locker, because it'll definitely be necessary.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They could even do that in the front of the carport.
yeah, and that doesn't have to be a 9 by 15 shed. I mean, they make, you can pick them up at Lowe's and Home Depot, what's basically a little plastic box if you can get it anchored down.
But that would be a requirement.
Yes,
yeah, that's good.
yep, with lawnmower storage.
You could even do that, or you could even enclose the front of that carport. One side of that carport could be enclosed, because that's a pretty long carport. You could actually enclose 6 foot of it, say up front, and put a door in it, and that would be a shed built under the
I
carport.
think most people would want that.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
All right, so can we say 850 with required outdoor storage locker?
Yeah,
850
yeah,
is fine.
good.
All right,
I like it.
It's a start.
are we in favor?
It's a start.
It's a start,
It's a start.
850, we're gonna, 850 with required storage. All right. 2-car,
The
room
required
for
storage.
2-car parking in the rear?
Can we pin down a description of this required storage? Just enough to
It needs to be
house a
enclosed,
lawnmower and
it needs to be enclosed, it needs to have a door, it needs to have a lock on it.
okay.
You can also address that during the specific use
Maybe
hearing.
put minimum of 50 square foot.
Specific use
A
would
50
allow us
square
to
foot
address these
storage?
things, and that's the beauty of specific use, is we don't,
Yeah.
we can kind of
Okay.
make requirements
Yep,
for each
yep.
case.
All right, I'm
And we
with
can
you
look at
there.
the design of each
Yeah,
proposal
sure.
and say, okay, this is good, or we want to add this to the design. Specific use kind of covers us on that. All right. Well, since there's not an ordinance to actually vote on.
Nope.
We'll bring that back with you.
Bring
with
it
the
back.
requirement.
All right. Well, we look forward to that.
Good,
We're
excellent.
ready to move on to item number 4.
Yes, sir.
Discuss and take action on allowance of shipping containers and other portable storage units for permanent storage as a permitted use in C1, C2, C3, in W1, and industrial zoning districts, and in residential zones with certain restrictions.
Another fun one.
You want to open a public hearing on this?
Yep.
All right. Public hearing, open, 6:46. Do we have any comments?
Just to reiterate what the changes were suggested at the July 7th Planning and Zoning Workshop and also again at the meeting after. So these changes that you requested have just been incorporated into an actual ordinance by Mr. Olson. So this requires a building permit and inspection, anchoring for windstorm standards. Containers may not be stacked, must be painted to match the principal structure, may not have any logos, numbering, or writing visible, must be maintained with no rust. Screening, if a commercial property is adjacent to a residential zone, then it must have an 8-foot opaque fence or a type C buffer zone, and the setback is 10 foot from the fence.
Yep.
And
That
there's
all
also
sounds
one
familiar.
additional in the residential zones that the temporary ones may remain in place for 30 days after the project completion.
This is the fruit of our 3-hour meeting on
Yes.
shipping containers.
I want to make one, I think it's just a typo thing here. Under public stores, public portable storage units, the stuff you just read through, bullet number 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it should read painted to match principal structure.
Yes.
Does that sound right to the rest of
Yeah.
y'all?
Yes, and it is,
Okay.
that's what it is.
And
on
that
the-
is
in
what's
the
in the
ordinance.
ordinance, right.
Yeah, this is just a background information, but on the ordinance itself, it's correct.
But if we're going to put background information in front of city council, I want that to be right.
Yep.
Yes, sir. It's on item number, page number 4, item D. It talks about paint, and it says with the same color scheme as the principal structure.
Yep.
Yeah, no logos, numbering, or other visible writing.
And that's important, because we don't want it to look like junk. Because when you go around and look at a lot of them now, they really do just look like they just came off a ship.
No, they do. A lot of them do.
Yeah.
You're right.
And I'm sure they did. So this makes it kind of an intentional thing and not just slapped together.
Now, I did speak to one of the gentlemen that brings in containers, and he works on them for, say, 6 months to a year, so it's more than temporary, but
Okay.
less than full-time permanent.
Yeah.
And he had questions about having to tie his down for windstorm and for painting it, being that it's gonna be shipped back out. And,
Oh, this is his business, having the containers there in
yeah,
his business?
fit them
Okay.
out, retrofit them out, and
Yeah.
then ship them back out. So, I don't know. Some of we may be able to actually accommodate that by taking the section out. Wasn't there a section in there that talked about them being on a trailer still, on a container? On the container car trailer?
It's just the definitions of whether it's being portable storage unit or whether it's being a temporary,
Right, but
permanent.
that was still under the permanent, right,
Mm-hmm.
with the trailer? Yeah, 'cause see, his actually sit on a trailer under axles.
Yeah, all the time he's working on it?
So that was just one concern
The
that somebody
definition
brought up
includes
to me.
truck containers with or without chassis attached to it.
Right, and it's
Yeah.
got the chassis attached, so if we took the chassis off, that would eliminate that. And technically, if it's got a chassis on it, it falls under the highway transportation code anyway, as a trailer with tags and combination plates.
No. With or without chat. We have talked about this till we're blue in the face. I don't think anybody's getting everything they want, but I feel like this is a pretty good compromise.
Yep.
It's hard to accommodate everybody and can't make everyone happy. With or without chassis attached. So you're saying this is the machine shop. Keeps them on the chassis.
Yeah. And if it's got a chassis under it, it's really not permanent. I mean, if it's got a chassis on it, you can't tie it down. It's got wheels and tires under it. It's designed to be pulled behind a truck.
I've
At that
seen
point-
some that are sitting on chassis and the tires are gone down to the rims and they're rotted and it'll never get on the road ever again, but it's still sitting on a chassis.
Treat that as a same as you would an RV or a boat or anything else that's in there falls under
it
that
got current
ordinance at that
registration?
point. Right, current registration, exactly.
I mean, that to me is the big difference between a truck and a piece of junk laying around.
Right.
Does it have current registration?
Yeah. Reminds me, I got one to talk to you about after the meeting.
So is there a proposal to amend section 2?
I think if you took that out, it would help a lot. If it was, if it has a chassis, I wouldn't
But
see
if you
that
just
it
said
would need
this
to be.
definition includes truck containers with or without, you would just say, take out the with or, so it says without chassis attached to it?
Yeah, or just pull out that whole section of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
without,
this is what I struck 2 words, with or,
yeah, I agree with that.
on line 4.
Yeah,
Line
without
4 under
the
portable storage
chassis.
unit.
I think that would accommodate them. I mean, we don't want to run businesses off, that's,
Sure.
you know.
And most I see around that are being brought
sitting
into
on the ground.
Freeport like a plague, they come in without chassis and they're just drop shipped. And then they sit there until the roof and floor rots out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's undesirable.
Very,
is.
very undesirable.
If we can clean that up, that's good. Okey-doke. So, yeah, I'm good for, let's take out the words with or. They're on page 2.
Page 2,
Well,
second
really-
line up from the bottom.
Yeah. So it would read, this definition includes truck containers without the chassis attached to it. And as I read it now, I'd say take off the comma at the end of the line after containers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Okey-doke.
All right, is there any further discussion on this ordinance?
Nope, I think it's good otherwise.
I have a feeling we will be talking about this again in a year.
What? Oh,
But,
yeah, okay. I can do a year. Sorry, I was just anticipating how quickly we're gonna have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Do have one other thing that I would like to discuss that we had talked about in our meeting. On placement, under C,
What page you on?
page 3.
Placement
at the bottom.
under
Thank
B?
you.
Under- oh,
Placement on the
section-
bottom.
Section 4, line C.
No portable storage unit should be placed on a lot without being anchored to a hard surface slab, concrete, or asphalt. We originally talked about that. We had talked about when these businesses want to do it, to be able to drop it on concrete blocks and not having to put in a slab underneath them. Be able to put it on crushed concrete
Yeah.
or something like that with just those 4-inch concrete blocks to keep it off the ground where it doesn't rust.
I think the idea in that was to limit the height. The containers are getting bigger, they're getting taller. And to allow for an 8-foot fence with a 10-foot setback to be sufficient screening, the blocks just kind of add to it. But I do think blocks are a perfectly good way to put them down.
Because if you put a slab down, it's not permanent, it's gonna be permanent for life then. If somebody moves in a shipping container that's got a business and they're renting a building and they put in a shipping container, if they gotta put in a slab, you can guarantee that thing's gonna sit there until it rots off.
Yeah.
They're not gonna move it.
Is there-
At least if it's sitting on blocks, there's a chance of maybe
Yeah.
moving out one day.
Is there any way they could minimize weed growth and vermin living under there? That's the only concern I have about something just raised up a little off the ground.
Even on concrete, it's gonna be that, because it's got 6-inch trusses underneath there,
Yeah.
and they can get right up underneath there anyway. Actually, being up off the ground probably gives you a little more
Room to deal with it.
room to deal with it,
The
because the
question for me-
animals won't really stay under there because the light
Yeah.
gets under there and
But
everything.
how high off the ground? How thick are these blocks? If you add another, if you put it on an 8-inch block, now you got a much taller container.
16 by 16 by 4-inch solid concrete block is sufficient.
Yeah.
That keeps it from sinking in the ground, that keeps it where you get some airflow underneath, and that keeps your height down. 4-inch solid concrete block, they weigh 80 pounds.
And the anchors don't care if they're on a concrete slab or
Nope.
just screwed into the dirt.
Yeah.
Right, you can screw them in the dirt and just attach a
Okay.
ground rod or anything to attach it, some rebar, all thread, strap material.
No scrap material.
So just to clarify, without being anchored to, do you want to specify 16 by 16 by 4 concrete blocks? Or just 4-inch concrete blocks?
How about suitable concrete blocks?
That sounds good.
Yeah, but the
I don't
problem
know
is,
that
the problem
enforce
was the height. I
Yeah.
remember we talked a lot about the height, limiting the height of the containers.
height in there? Wasn't there a maximum
There
height
was a
already in
maximum
there?
height we discussed, and I didn't bring my notes tonight from the last meeting. I should have.
It was 9 foot, I thought.
9 foot was supposed to be the limit. And you put them up on blocks, and then it takes away from the effectiveness of the screening standards.
Because we had originally talked about 9 foot as the height. Actually, I wanted to go 10 foot, and
No.
y'all didn't really want to go that route. So I think 9 foot is what was discussed at our meeting.
That sounds right.
I know we wanted the setback of 10 feet from the fence. The fence
Right.
can't be really taller than 8 feet without running into other problems.
Well, our ordinance only allows for an 8-foot fence.
Yeah, so that was the issue with the blocks. You want to keep this thing at you don't want it 10 feet tall.
No, containers are 8 foot tall right now.
Well, some of them are a bit taller than that.
9'6" on a high cube.
And
On the
high cubes are a
standard-
little popular, and that was the thing, should we disallow high cubes? That was the.
This ordinance disallowed it because we had it
I don't-
originally set at 9 foot.
I don't see a height limit in this ordinance.
No.
Page, it's not in the ordinance.
It's not there.
It's before it.
No, I'm okay with the 9'6", but when we originally discussed it,
So if you were putting in, one of the taller, what's the name for the taller?
high cube.
High cube.
If you put it in a high cube, you'd have to put it on a slab. You couldn't put it on blocks.
On a 4-inch, well, I mean, okay, when you're talking about placing it on a hard concrete surface, if you've got a yard that you're backing this up and putting it in a yard, you could always dig down in the ground and drop your concrete block 4 inches in the ground, and then your container sitting on that block, basically on the ground, but it's got a concrete pad underneath it, which are designed, shipping containers designed to only be on 4 corners.
I'm okay with putting it on blocks, but I don't want to, I want to put the height restriction in there. I don't want to undercut the screening standards by making the thing taller.
I like that too. I mean,
So
you don't
we
want
need
it
some,
too
we
tall.
need the height limit.
I thought we had that in there somewhere.
I don't see it.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
So we'll
We
need to
did when we
add
discussed it
an
in our
H.
meeting. We did at our meeting, it was
Right.
in there.
Yeah. But it got lost in here somehow.
So you want to add an item H for height and limit the height to,
I think 9.5 feet would have to be the absolute limit.
Yeah, above the,
above ground including foundation?
Yeah, from the ground, from the dirt to the top of the container, 9.5 feet.
what do we call the average ground level? Has it got a technical name?
Grade.
Grade,
Natural
grade
grade.
height,
Thank you.
Natural grade?
natural grade. Or whatever grade they come
From the
up with.
dirt to the top of the roof. Yep. All right. Is there any other discussion? We want to add that item H, height limit 9.5 feet,
Yep.
and take out the with or on page 2, second line from the bottom. The comma with or, and just say without chassis.
Yep.
Now, that does create a loophole for us. If someone just keeps it on a chassis, then
If they
now
keep it
it's,
registered.
But we can treat that under their vehicles. We can treat that under as trailers or RVs or boats. That can fall under the same category. So we still have enforcement.
There is a junk vehicle ordinance that would take
Yep.
care of that.
And it's a pretty good
you
ordinance.
think, okay. I trust you, Ms. Roman.
And then also, just to clarify, in placement, we're going to include concrete blocks in addition to hard surface slab?
Yes, to include concrete blocks, but as long as it doesn't violate the total height. All right. Well, shall we close the public hearing? And then I'll entertain a motion. Public hearing's closed, 7 o'clock.
I'd make a motion that we go ahead and adopt this with a few minor changes that we put in. Sorry, I can't
Second that.
enumerate them.
All right, motion's been made to approve the ordinance as
Amended?
amended.
I'll second it.
All right. I think Eric seconded it first, but we'll
That's
take.
okay. You can have it, Jim.
Jim, you got it? All right, so motion's made and seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. See how
Thank you
long
all
before
for
that
keeping up
comes
with
up
all
again.
this.
All right, now
It
some
didn't take me as long
replats.
as I thought it was gonna take. Might be able to get
What are
it
we up
right.
to?
All right, number 5, discuss and take action regarding a request for a plat of Lot 21A, Block 757 of the Velasco Town Site, addition to the City of Freeport, a replat of lots 20, 21, and 22, Block 757, according to the map of record in Volume 32, page 14 of the Deed of Records of Brazoria County, Texas. Now I have public hearing and comments. Oh, is the mic on?
702?
There we go.
It's time.
702.
This property is located inside the city of Freeport city limits on North Avenue O in the 757 block. The owner is just replotting 3 lots into one so that he can build a single-family residence. And the owner on record is Victor Juarez of Angleton. We are recommending approval of the replat.
Those are 3 25-foot lots, aren't they?
Yes. 325.
And that's ideally what we want on these
Yeah.
25-foot lots.
this is-
Sometimes it
This is
doesn't
what you're
happen that
supposed to do
way.
with the 25-foot lot.
Yeah.
You picked the wrong day to bring this in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else, any public that wants to make a comment on this replat? All right. Hearing none, we'll now close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion
7:03.
to
I'll move to approve. Oh, go ahead.
All right, Eric makes a motion to approve,
Second.
seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, pass unanimous.
Moving on.
All right, number 6. Discuss and take action regarding a request for a plat of the Luciano subdivision, a 1-lot subdivision composed of Lot 13 and 14 of the Velasco Heights Annex as recorded in Volume 4, page 35 of the Brazoria County Plat Records and the Alexander Calvet Survey, Abstract 49 in Brazoria County, Texas. Open the public hearing. And Ms. Roman.
All right, this property is located at 1721 Yellowstone. It's also inside our Freeport city limits. The owner is replatting. He has 2 current lots, and he wants to turn it into 1. And it's Zone C2 for commercial development. And the owner on record is OCL Eliserio of Freeport, Texas. And we are recommending to approve the replat. And is there anyone here for this?
You know what they're planning on building?
I don't want to say definitively if it's the, there is one that came in and he wanted to build an auto garage, if this is the same gentleman.
That's kind of what's over in that area anyway.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
that's good. All right, do we have any more public comments? Anyone wanting to speak on this item?
Yeah, I
Right.
was thinking there was a church on one side of it. I couldn't tell what on the other.
All right, we'll now close the public hearing, 7:04. Being no more comments, and we will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
Second it.
Motion by Eric, seconded. Ron, that's, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, passes. Replat done there.
Moving on.
All right, moving on. Agenda item number 7. This is a request for a plat, the Willow Breeze Farm Section 2, a subdivision of 55.168 acres out of a 73.33 acre tract, being the same tract conveyed to the SBK Family Homes LLC, a Texas limited liability company, as recorded in clerk's file number 2022-007505 of the official records of Brazoria County, Texas. William McDermott, survey abstract 341, Brazoria County, Texas.
This property is outside of our city limits in the ETJ. It's on Hammond Road near the intersection of 2004 and FM 523. The owner's replatting the current existing property out of a 55.168 acre tract due to the new floodplain changes. And there is a representative from that property here to speak tonight.
All right.
And we are recommending approval of the replat as well.
Good evening. My name's Keith Morgan. I came here in 2017, and my family had bought this 70-acre piece, and we have a net road that runs down kind of along the side of it. So we developed lots on both sides. We developed 32 lots. We're not a big developer, we're just kind of family, right? But, so we have sold those lots, most all of them, and we have a few left, right? So we did, in fact, go through the process with Doyle and Watchstetter and Baker and Lawson, and we had a plat developed that we were going to subdivide this additional 50 acres into about 80 more lots, sorry. So then COVID came, prices of materials went up, and in December 30th, 2020, the base flood elevation changed, added 7 feet, right? At that point in time, the cost of the lot, or the cost of the roads and the cost of the dirt and everything else, the lots just, made no sense. So there's several things that have changed that we need to record in the plat. The first thing is, we went to the county, they require a single driveway off from a net road, right, into these subdivided pieces. So every piece is at least 15 acres. So, do y'all have pictures of the plat? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is land behind the houses. Okay. So we've had to cannibalize basically. Just stop. I could talk loud enough, I think. So we had to cannibalize a lot to make a driveway, basically, right? So if you look, there's three sections.
Yep.
The one to the right, if I'm looking at it this way, right? The 15-acre section here has an access off from a net road. That's 15 acres, and the prospective buyer came with me tonight, okay? So if he wants to say something, you can talk to him. So he's running horses, he's got horses out there, and I'll let him talk about what he wants to do. But it's basically, it's gonna be in ag, right? So then one in the middle, we had to cannibalize lot 25. That's gonna have to be a driveway to get back into this middle section. On the other section, to the left, that's 22 acres, or approximately 22 acres. There's a couple of things happening there to be noted, right? So the current lot owners of lot 20 and lot 21 wanted to buy some additional space behind their house. So since we were replatting, we were willing to do that. But again, because of the county requirements for a driveway off from a net road, it would be basically an orphaned piece of property unless it was included with the lot. So we're bringing that to replat that, and the owners did sign the plat and everything else, right? So that would then legally make that a single piece of property. It couldn't be resold in the future and be an orphan piece of land. I don't know what all the legal terms are, but that's what the county told me, right?
Right.
So the other change is the little water lot there, if you see. This was originally designed to have 2 wells on it. It was Orbit Systems at the time. We took it to the TCEQ. This was designed for 2 water wells to support those 100 lots or so. Since we're not developing that, we don't need the same size of the lot. So it's actually been, the physical size of the lot has been decreased. That has been approved, and again, the president of Orbit Systems signed that change. The other thing that we had to put in there, there's a permanent easement across that lot 19, that very first lot. That was an easement required by TCEQ to have access to the water lot for maintenance. So again, that will make the lot 19 part of that ag development, or that ag piece, and can never be anything but a driveway, right? So that's why I'm saying I had to cannibalize those 3 lots in order to have access to the property. That's basically, I think, the 3 pieces that we talked about was the acreage. It's all more than 15 acres. It'll all be an ag, basically. The 1 acre and a half acre, and also the water lot.
All right.
Any other questions that I can answer?
Thank you. That
good. Thank
clarifies
you.
it.
Pretty simple.
Yep, we'd have never figured it out if you hadn't explained it.
Yeah. And we have one more person who wants to speak on this as a buyer? If you don't want to, it's okay. I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
No, thank you. My name is Rolando de la Fuente, so good evening. So, no, I'm just looking at purchasing the 15-acre tract on the south side. My daughter, she's in love with horses. She's a teenager, and my wife and I have bought 2 horses, and I just need a place to put them, and so that she can, horse ride and do her things with them. So that's why we're interested in the
Good.
Horses
Thank
are
you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
They're good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there even being no more comments, we'll close the public hearing at 7. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't see you back there.
I live in Willow Breeze Farm, Section 1.
Can you come to the mic and tell us who you are? Your name and where you
Give
live?
him a form?
I didn't see a form for him, but,
No, I'm a resident. Okay, my name is John Housen. I live in Willow Breeze Farm, Section 1, Lot 28. I just got a couple of questions. I want to make sure. This is 3 15-acre sections, right?
Minimum 15 acres.
3 sections. Which section are you buying, sir? South side.
lot 33. Okay.
Left, right, left, center, or right?
Right.
Really good. And it's gonna be state agriculture? For now. Our concerns are, the neighbors, myself and the neighbors, our concerns are because of the floodplain.
Can you address the board? I'm sorry.
Yeah, with microphone.
No, you have to speak into the microphone. This is a public.
Okay, our concerns, my neighbors and I, are the trailers have to be, because FEMA changed the pilings. My trailer is like 4 feet, now they have to be 12 feet above floodplain. Oh, wow. The drainage in our yard. My yard and the neighbors' yards are already a pond. If it rains, we just don't want more rainfall, our drainage to come to the house. In other words, we don't want damage done to our lots, our housing. So that's just why I'm here.
All right.
So I want to make sure that, one, it's not sold as commercial property, so I don't, at 3 a.m., somebody ain't pounding steel or whatever, and I don't want any damage done, any lowering of my property values due to flooding or et cetera. And can I ask y'all a question?
Yes, sir.
Being it's in, I thought Angleton, I think the lady said that the city of Freeport in the extraterritorial jurisdiction doesn't go that far, correct?
Yes, sir.
So why are we here in front of y'all?
It is in the
Right.
ETJ.
From Freeport?
Yep.
This is in our ETJ.
The ETJ goes
How
all the
far
way
does it
around
go?
Angleton.
It goes really far. We have Bar X Ranch, areas around Churchill. It's pretty
Almost to Alvin.
extensive. Yeah, there's some sections all the way to Alvin.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Your extraterrestrial jurisdiction for Freeport goes all the way to Alvin?
Yes, sir. There are some small sections, yes.
Who made that rule?
Yeah, a long time ago by
A
some.
long
time ago.
Yes, sir.
Well, let me ask a question. Is there anything that, regarding this change that affects the drainage?
Is there any grading plans?
I mean, does this change the?
Yes, sir.
Sure.
You can't push water on your neighbor anyway.
Yes.
As I stated earlier, our initial plans for this land, and what I mean by initial plans is my wife and I were in our 50s. I don't have the money to build anything on it. So for now, it's going to be just a horse ranch for my daughter to go and keep her horses. She wants to go do barrel racing. She can practice there. I may build just a small arena, which is not going to be built up, right? It's just going to be topsoil around arena so that she can launch her horses, and some stables, right? So that she can house her horses and protect them from the elements, or, that's pretty much it. What will happen with my kids once I pass? I don't know what they're going to do with the land, right? I mean, they may want to develop a house, build a house there and live out there. I don't know. I can't control that. Now, I'm not going to build a business there. That's not the whole point for this. The point is for this to have something for my children so that they can go away from Houston and go do something outside of the city and relax.
So the drainage shouldn't be impacted.
Yeah, and you can't shed water on your neighbor's property
Yeah.
I
anyway
will
if
say
you did
there
build.
are ordinances in place, well, actually, laws for drainage in the county. Whenever you develop residential or commercial in the county, you do have to submit a drainage plan, so that would help
Yes,
the neighbors.
so-
Absolutely correct. So I already met with drainage, with the county, with the drainage department. I told them my plans. They didn't bring up any concerns. They did say that if I was ever to build, like a four-wall structure, then I would have to meet code or regulations, and I would have to go proper permits, get proper analysis of drainage with the drainage department. So, I mean, I'm aware of that, so, but like I said, I don't have the financial means right now to do anything with that other than to use it as a place for my children to go and do with their horses.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, you can come. One more time.
I'll make this really quick. We did go, what I think causes some confusion is, it's the Angleton Drainage District that we're in, but we're in Freeport ETJ, of course, right? So that causes some confusion. So we worked with Doug Ressler, who is the Angleton Drainage District engineer at Baker and Lawson also. And yes, that it's all correct. We wanted to make sure that we went through the county, and we did that. I am familiar with that. We did put a ditch down along the back side of those houses, trying to redirect some of the water off from the property, so. But this has nothing to do with changing any of that. We just have to replay.
Got you.
Okay?
Good.
Yes, sir. All right.
Who's gonna-
Well, all right. One more comment, sir, and then we're closing.
I have the gentleman. I don't mind you building horses or.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I was telling the gentleman I don't mind him buying horses for his daughter and building a corral on her. I just want to preserve my property values and those of my neighbors. There was supposed to be more of us here. Unfortunately, I was the only one that showed up, so. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, we'll now close the public hearing at 7:19 and entertain discussion or motion.
I'll make a motion, it's my turn.
Second.
right.
I'll second it.
I make a motion, we approve this.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Pass
I
unanimous.
make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
I'll second that.
Motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, let's go